Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. My name is Matt Moline. I am the head of sales and marketing here over at Grit Technologies. And today we're going to be taking a field trip, if you will, of the dark web. This kind of came out of a lot of conversations that we've had. You probably, if you've talked with us before, you've probably heard us talk about the dark web. You've probably heard about it in the news recently. There's a lot of discussion about cybersecurity and, whether it's you've heard that there's been some major breaches. One example was like the Colonial Pipeline recently in this last year. There's information coming from the White House about how businesses need to up their security, and there's just a lot of talk about it. So we use when we talk about cybersecurity, there is a lot of talk about specifically the dark web, and it seems like for either there's essentially there's a misconception that it's not really something you need to worry about, or it's something that just IT folks are using to sell services, which is obviously not the case. It's actually a real thing. There's actually a real threat out there to small to medium-sized businesses and all organizations of any size, for that matter. And the purpose of today is to purely just give you guys education. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to just take a tour through the web and actually give you guys just a front row seat. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and get started here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to kind of go through a couple things, a couple statistics as far as how it relates to the dark web and what it means for you, and then we'll get going here. So I think the majority of people have actually showed up, and we're going to go ahead and get started. So first and foremost, if you really want to take a quick note just on what it really means for you in this year. Really, ever since a lot of companies have gone to remote workforce, we've been able to see a lot of changes when it comes to security. And basically what it means as far as in terms of cybersecurity, there's a lot of discussion about, just the ongoing threat and the attack surface. So basically what's happening is as companies have had to go remote, as they've had to deploy their people to work from home and things like that, there's been an increasing threat along with that. So as the adaptation of remote work has increased, the risk of cybersecurity risk has also increased. And what this is equated to, and how this is being done, is through phishing attacks. We've seen increases in ransomware. There's actually been physical breaches where people's information has actually been stolen. People are impersonating other folks, things like that. And we've also seen attacks in third-party and also supply chain risks. What that means is basically instead of attacking or brute forcing companies directly, they're actually going about and attacking main business line applications, for example, along with they're actually attacking companies that supply other types of services, whether it be like things like HVAC, different type of security services, other types of software, for example. How this kind of translates into today in our conversation for today is what we're going to look at is how the dark web is being used by attackers, how it's basically what we're going to be looking at is obviously there's growing trends going on because of all the remote work and all of the applications and stuff that we're using today. That's a big thing. But the other thing is that the different types of services, the different types of type of marketplaces that are growing on the dark web has increased as well, which has also led to the threat. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So a couple things about the dark web is a couple statistics that are pretty interesting, and as it relates into this year. About 90% of posts on popular dark web forums are from buyers looking to contract someone for hacking services. It's pretty interesting. 69% of those dark web forum hiring posts were actually looking for cyber criminals to do some website hacking of some type. And interesting enough, too, 21% were looking for bad actors who could actually obtain specifically targeted users or client databases, which is pretty shocking. So with that, what we want to look at is, what exactly is the dark web? It seems like it's this scary, term. Is it really, scary as far as, is it something to be afraid of? If you're not going in it and actually surfing this web and interacting with everything, then honestly, in that sense, it's not necessarily scary to you. But what's scary about it is the fact that just all the different types of services, the different types of things that are bought, sold, and traded on there. It's the fact that the information that it goes through it is all encrypted. It's a great way for people to obviously keep their privacy without having other types of government agencies and other people knowing what they're doing. So what I have here for you guys is just a quick explanation as far as what the dark web is, and basically what it is and how it. Excuse me. Let me back up. So basically, what it is and how it relates to the rest of the internet. So if we think of the internet as a whole, it basically consists of about three different things, which is the surface web, another part which we call the deep web, and then the actual dark web itself. And the surface web, I would look at it as this is the stuff that we see on a daily basis. You can go into Google, you can go in and check out, like your Amazon.com, web pages. You can search, all the different news sites that are out there, all the different, e-commerce sites and shopping and stuff like that we see. That's essentially what the surface web is, and think of it that way. On the other end of the iceberg, or the lower part of the iceberg, or actually what the majority of the internet is, and it's about 400 to 500 times larger than the actual surface web, is what we call the deep web. And this is stuff that is like your banking, information, email, any type of like chat communication, things like your internet phones and that type of infrastructure is what is actually on the which is what's considered the deep web. A very small portion of that, and when I say small portion of that, is actually it actually consists of what we call the dark web. And basically it's a hidden collective of internet sites that is only accessible by a specialized web browser, or you have other means of actually getting inside of it. And it basically is its own specific network, what's known as the Tor network. And essentially, once you're able to log in with a Tor client, you kind of get bounced around with an onion router. And what's interesting is the fact that it's completely encrypted. There is no actual way for people to actually track you. And the interesting thing about it too is that when people actually surf the web, what's really interesting about it is that you can't track anything. You can find specific sites through the specific search engines to find things on the dark web, but you can't find out things like where this specific site is hosted. You won't be able to know where it originated from. You won't be able to know who actually owns that site. So that's the type of stuff that you can that's essentially how it essentially works. It's basically a completely segregated network, its own little piece, if you will, of the internet. And it's pretty interesting. So let's go actually let's move forward here. So without further ado, I think everybody kind of showed up to see, what we can actually find on the dark web. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how you would access it. And what I would like to say first is we are going to throw a little bit of a disclaimer out there that we do not encourage anybody to, you can go online and you can search of how to access the dark web and you can start surfing around if you want to. We definitely do not encourage that. I mainly for reasons of it's not necessarily illegal to view things on the dark web, but it is definitely legal to interact with some of these sites. We don't want anybody doing that. We don't want anybody to fall victim, from downloading or interacting, in any way. As we were developing this webinar for everybody, one of the things that I really wanted to do was actually sit down with one of our folks here at Grit and really give you guys a front row seat, like actually log in for the first time and take you through that whole experience. What was really what we found out pretty quick was there's certain information. There's also some certain content and stuff that's probably inappropriate to view on a webinar. So we obviously want to avoid that. So what we've done is we've actually did some screen captures, some video, along with some screenshots to give you guys the best front row seat experience that we can give you. So let's go into how you would actually access that, and I have an example of how we would do that. So as Darth Vader would say, come to the dark side. Let's go ahead and dive in. So first thing, what you're looking at here is this is essentially a search engine. This is very much like your Google, your Bing, your Yahoo, whatever your preferred search engine is. This is AMIA. This is essentially a web browser specifically designed to seek out and search for dark websites. And unlike Google, where you might be looking at, shopping for a new pair of shoes or looking for, whatever it is you're searching for, you might be looking for things. If you're a person, a bad actor, a hacker, whatever, you might be looking for, a credential database of some type. You might be looking for, services to hire a hacker. You might be looking for information about, purchasing some illegal, drugs and things like that. That's the type of stuff that this is actually used. And this is one example of one of those browsers that people use to actually access the web. Very, very much the same way that we would, go and visit our .com sites. The difference between, though, a dark website and a .com site, for example, is it has a .onion domain versus a .com. And you have, and these are actually, again, they're hidden. You can't use tools like Google and that to find them. You actually have to download specific software. There's also other means to actually access the dark web to get in there. So this is one example of how people would get into it. So let's take a look at our first site. So again, we've redacted some information here just for security reasons. What you're looking at is an actual site of that. It's basically a database marketplace. It's a leaked database marketplace for documents, all different types of data. And if you look and you look around and you start looking at this, one of the things that stands out is that you're probably going to recognize some of these companies. We can see that there's at the top of the list, there's Acer.com. There's a data leak. Same thing with Exchange Telecom. There's a Volkswagen data leak. The Shell.com or Shell organization. There was also a data leak as well. And this marketplace is it's run just like a real business is. And that's one of the things that we, I think, as IT folks understand of how this stuff works. What's interesting is just I think we have a hard time communicating like how these types of marketplaces and how these types of websites operate. And it's not just a group of people, a small handful of individuals that are trying to communicate and sell services and sell things on the dark web. There's large organizations, and there's many sites. This is one example of buying and selling of confidential information that's out there. One of the things I think is interesting, if you look at the Shell.com data leak, is that there was, looks like about 110 gigabytes of data that's been leaked. If you look at the Volkswagen group, looks like they got the secure documents and SQL database, which has financial details, customer information, that type of stuff. If you look on the right-hand side, we can see things like, the fresh leaks. What's the most recent, leaks that are out there, along with most popular leaks. So ask yourself this question too: is what would you do with this information if you've got a whole bunch of credentials? What necessarily would you actually do with it? And the fact is there's a lot you can do with it. The reality is that a lot of people use the same username and password for pretty much everything still. More than, I think it's over 55%, if I remember right. The other thing you can do too is there's a bunch of tools and services, and we're gonna look at a couple of those here in a little bit, of where there's a lot of automation to where you can buy these credentials, you can put them into essentially a software program. It's all automated. It can hit all of the top sites out there, like your Office 365, popular banking sites, things like that, to see if those credentials can actually be used to log into those sites. So again, it's pretty amazing that this type of stuff exists. And if you look at the price tag on this too, I mean, look at this. I mean, one's listed for $500. I think the rest of them are $1,000, $1,000. You can see that, what's been sold, how many views. Again, this is all criminal activity, and but they go about it just like a normal business, like it's just a regular, regular e-commerce site. Let's look at the Acer.com site. Again, you can actually just go and buy this leak, $1,000. You can buy the leak, get all the information, download it, and then use it for whatever nefarious activities that you have or you want to do. If you don't want to spend $1,000 right away, you can just buy a sample, which I think is really interesting as well. And I think it's really interesting at the bottom there too. If you look, it says, due to leechers and scammers, we've stopped sharing free samples anymore. So you got, criminals, looks like harassing other criminals within the dark webs, which I think is pretty interesting. So let's keep moving on here. Let's go to a different site. So this is an actual marketplace. So kind of what the dark web is known for, like the majority of what it's known for is kind of the buying and selling not only of services, but actually goods, illegal goods, drugs, firearms, all that type of stuff. Again, there's no way to actually track that activity. It's very hard to track track anything going on the dark web because it's all encrypted. And if you look, from some of the examples that are here, it looks like they're selling things from tobacco to jewelry to surveillance. Looks like you've got forged documents, you've got a phishing collection, you've got fake money, and a bunch of other stuff that's in here. I want to take a look at one specific one here too. And if you remember in the beginning of the webinar, I was talking about how, obviously there's a rise in cybersecurity breaches and threats. It's obviously due to the fact that a lot of people are using, we're a lot more remote now. The attack surface has spread. One of the things that people aren't really talking about, or at least not talking about enough, is the rise in usage and the rise of services available to these criminals. And this is an example of that. You probably heard of phishing before, or you probably even experienced something like that before, where you've got an email impersonating, a CEO or another employee, or it looks like they're impersonating a larger company like Amazon, and they pretend to send you a link that looks like, you got a package, but it's obviously trying to get some information from you, whatever. You can actually buy, on this specific example, you can buy a collection of phishing templates, anything from a whole collection of, like your Amazon, your UPS, impersonations of, CEOs, you name it, it's there, and it's available for just under $120. If you think about how successful phishing can be, the cost of $120 is pretty, it's pretty cheap for what you can do with it. And what they'll do with these templates is they'll actually take this collection and they can put them again. There's bots and there's specific software applications that allow them to take this information and do a mass, widespread type of phishing campaign, or they can take this stuff too and actually do what's called spear phishing and really target a specific organization or an individual. Pretty amazing. So one of the things I talked about, and this is another site we're going to move forward here with. One of the things I talked about is how the leak credentials can be used to obviously gain access to other sites. This is an example of a site that has a more strategic approach to gaining access or to steal somebody's identity, to impersonate somebody, so forth and so forth. This one kind of specifically talks about Instagram accounts, but it does have a lot of other information on there. They list like LinkedIn, Kavana, some other sites as well. But with this specific site, what's interesting is you can actually just search by somebody's email address or username, like Instagram account or whatever. You can hit search, and what it will do is it will actually scour the entire dark web and also its databases that it holds here too, and actually see if there is any matching results. And if there is some matching results, so maybe you found some stuff, like you found that the username and the email is associated with an adobe.com account, for example, or Office 365, or some sort of banking website, or any other type of social media site, whatever. You can actually purchase those credentials, and now you potentially can gain access just with those credentials to those sites. This doesn't take really any effort. All you really have to do is be bold enough to go into the dark web, and want, for whatever reason, to be able to get this type of information. It doesn't take any type of skilled hacking, necessarily. There's a lot of damage you can do with really little information with sites like this. So let's go and let's look at another example. So one of the big things, and one of the things that I talked about in the first part of the webinar, was the fact of the buying and selling of services is a big thing. You can actually hire hacking services on the dark web, and a lot of people don't really understand that or understand why. This is one site where you can go on and you can actually hire a hacker for whatever type of service. I think it's really interesting, just the types of services that you can get from this type of site here. Everything from phishing attacks to social media attacks. You can do smartphone hacking, computer spying. You can change grades in your school and university. I think that's a very interesting one. I didn't know that was an option. Advanced, attacks, and the list goes on and on and on. And what I think is really interesting too, and what I found in our research for this project, along with just experiences and talking with our partners, our cybersecurity partners, is that the dark web is filled with this stuff, and the reason why it's gaining in popularity is because obviously it's working. But the other thing too is, which is interesting, is that a lot of these sites, a lot of these services, you can find them through specific forums where you can go in and you can be, again, anonymous and start asking, who's the best hacker in town, or who has the best, you name it. And these sites are actually kind of funny too, where I mean they're essentially listing their resumes of like what their credentials are and what types of skills and things they have. And an interesting fact that I found as well is that, and it's widely known, people in the dark web, is that some of the best customer service that you can receive is actually in the dark web, because that's all they have to go by to gain their credibility. And as they gain credibility, obviously gain popularity, they they continue with their services. And again, this is a business for a lot of people. Let's look at the specific site services, just a little more information for you guys. Again, some of the stuff we already talked about. They offer cell phone hacking, email hacking. You can apparently hack your credit score, which I thought was interesting. You've got different website hacking, social media hacking. Take a look, for example, take a look at what the arrow is pointing to as well. And one of the questions I get sometimes is like, how are people paying for services? Digital currencies like Bitcoin, Monero, Dogecoin, what have you, are all widely used because, again, it gives them the means to, it gives the bad actors and people that are requesting these types of services that type of invisibility that they're looking for. It's very rare that there will be actual physical dollars or exchanges through bank transfers and things like that when you're on the dark web. It's all done through cryptocurrencies. This is another site. We're going to move on to another site. Again, this is one of those hacking service sites. This one's a little more well done. I think what's interesting about this site here is that, or what is interesting about some of these sites is I realized that in some of the forums and things in research is like they have things like design contests. They actually have marketing teams for their services. It's unbelievable. This is a site where you can buy Trojans. You can hack Facebook. If you notice some of the stuff, it's $200, $250, $230 to gain access into these sites. Again, you can be totally invisible. You can be anonymous. You can go in and you can say, hey, there's a specific account or person that I want to hack. Can I list your services? And they'll do it for you. It's pretty amazing. And of course, I talked about customer reviews. Again, the fact that you have this in a criminal marketplace is amazing. This one over here, Devin, he said, excellent and professional investigative services. I hired a hacking service for a very private and difficult matter of hacking my victim's phone. I mean, it's amazing. I think we make the mistake sometimes too of thinking like this world is very small. When we talk about cybersecurity and things, I think we still kind of think it's still like this small little thing. And the reality is that there's millions and millions of people accessing the dark web. There's people that have no hacking abilities or type of technical abilities themselves, but they have a vendetta against somebody, or they know of a business that is not keeping their infrastructure and don't have a really good cybersecurity posture and want to take advantage of that. They're using these types of services, and there's a lot of documented cases. And this is an example of those types of sites that people are going to and getting those types of services done. One of the things that is really interesting too, another marketplace for hackers and somebody who, again, more strategic approach to taking over a company or hacking a company is services like custom-made ransomware. And you've probably heard of ransomware before. We've definitely talked about it a lot with our clients. The fact that something like this exists, where you can go in and pay, looks like it's $350 for a custom-made ransomware. If somebody ordering this is definitely somebody who already probably has at least a few businesses in mind, probably has some known breaches to where, or at least has the means to phish, probably has a high success rate with phishing with a company to get them to download or insert this malware into the organization. When you think of $350, that's pretty cheap, especially when I think the national average for ransomware right now, the actual ransom. And if you're not familiar with ransomware, basically, real short, what it is it's basically it's a malicious malware that if it's downloaded and gets installed onto a computer, it can go across the entire network and completely encrypt all of the company's data, including your data. And you have to pay a ransom to get that back, again, through like Bitcoin or similar type of digital currency. The average ransom today is somewhere in the realm of, I think it's like $5 to $8 grand. That's probably more because there's been a lot of success with ransomware. But the initial ransom itself is, again, it's like around $5 to $8 grand typically, from what I've seen. Depends on the organization. What it costs though for a company a lot of times is a lot more. The average cost of downtime typically is somewhere in like that, over in the $200,000 and $250,000 when you think about the fact that you can't work because all of your important data is encrypted and it's locked out. So when you look at $350 to deploy ransomware, it's pretty amazing. It's a worthwhile investment if you're a hacker, if you're somebody who again, one of those bad actors out there. And again, I mean, it's because of services like this, the ease of use, the different tools and software that's out there, that is, along with the fact that we were kind of thrown as a society into this cloud-based digital age where we have all these different people logging into different software programs to communicate, to collaborate, to do their jobs. It's no wonder that the amount of breaches that have happened have increased upwards of almost 400% in the last couple of years. So again, this is just another example of the type of stuff that people are getting into, and just again, it's amazing how easy it really is to get this information. Again, customer reviews. They live and breathe and for this stuff in the dark web, and this is particular to the ransomware. Or sorry, the malware here. So they're saying, good quality. Received my first order. Very well worth the money. It's pretty amazing. So ultimately, let's talk about what can be done. There is a real threat. It's not just a myth. It's a real place. I showed you just some quick examples of some of the different sites that are out there in the different marketplaces. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different sites like this. So it seems like as businesses and we were kind of thrown into a situation within the last few years that we have all of this information, we have all these different endpoints, we got people everywhere. How can you manage that? How can you absolutely know that you're going to be safe and secure? The good news is that there's a lot of different services. There's a lot of different frameworks and things to live by and to incorporate into your business. And I just want to go over a couple things with you on that. And once we're done with that, we'll definitely have some time for a Q&A. So let's dive into that. So as far as recommendations, at least from us and our perspective here at Grit, along with a lot of different security professionals, is if you are not currently working with a managed service provider, or you are working with a managed service provider, what you want to do is you really want to make sure that they're following what's called the NIST cybersecurity framework. You can actually go to I think it's NIST. I think it's .gov.org. If you Google search NIST cybersecurity framework, there's a specific website for it. This is considered the gold standard as it's concerned for cybersecurity. And basically, there's 5 factors that go into this. The first is identify protect, goes into detection, response, and recover. Briefly, I'm going to cover this. Basically, the first one of identify is basically, just as it sounds, you want to, it's specifically calling out asset management. So you actually can identify all the different types of desktops and laptops and devices that are all part of your organization. And then because you can't protect if you don't know what you have, that's the big thing there. And then we want to look at ways if we can protect those individuals and those devices, things like access control, cybersecurity, awareness training, data security, so forth and so forth. The next one is detection. If something was trying to maliciously, do a brute force, attack into a network or a computer, what are the different things that we can put into place to detect those breaches, detect those things? What's the processes? What are what's the software? What's the hardware that we can put in place to do that? The next one is respond, and basically we're talking about like a disaster recovery, business continuity plan, response planning, what it means for communications analysis. How do you make improvements upon that? How quickly can you respond to a breach? And then that leads into the next one of, as far as recovery or recover, how can you recover? How quickly can you recover? How much data, can be lost in that recovery period, so forth and so forth. And realistically, what are some of the things that, we recommend that encompass different parts of this? One of the things we were talking about, obviously, today was the dark web. There is services and called dark web monitoring. They come in all different types of forms. It's one of the services that we roll into, services that we supply to our clients, where we actually 24/7, 365 are actually scanning the dark web for credentials. We want to make sure that nobody's, if their credentials do show up somewhere on the dark web, we have that instant notification to know that the credential was found, and then we take the necessary steps and actions with that individual to obviously change their password, update their information, so forth and so forth. So even though they can have that specific username and password, for example, it's not going to be able to be used to log into whatever site that it might be found on. One of the things you really should be doing, if you're not already doing, is doing some sort of email awareness training with your staff. Whether this is a yearly, quarterly type of thing, this is through email, through phishing. This is still one of the big ways that people are still getting into organizations and getting data and having ransomware deployed. And you want to be doing actually simulated phishing tests. You actually want to be doing this on a routine basis. One of the things we do here at Grit is we do that monthly with all of our clients, where we actually send out fake emails, things like that, and basically seeing if individuals will click and actually will interact with those emails in some way. And if they do, there's a process in place to educate those individuals specifically, on what types of things would happen if it was a real event, so forth and so forth. Talked about endpoint detection. You really want to make sure that you have detection on all your endpoints that are out there. This comes in the form of software where it will monitor, incoming and outgoing, information. Anything that is malicious, it's going to detect that and deal with it as needed. You guys really should be considering, if you're not already, you really should be looking into a company-wide password manager and adopting a password management process. One recommendation you can look up online is a product called Dashlane, something we use here internally at Grit. We're at a point now where we cannot have the same username and password for all of the different types of accounts and different types of websites that we use on a daily basis. We really do need the help of tools like password managers to do that. There's some resources at the end of this that I'll share with you guys. that you can go and take a look at to get some more information about that. But a password manager is something across the entire company that you really should be looking into. And if you have any questions on any of this stuff, obviously you can reach out to us. We can talk you through it. If you haven't already, anywhere you can put multi-factor or two-factor authentication, anything you log into, you absolutely need to do it. Same thing with also restricting your admin rights. You want to make sure that nobody has admin privileges to mainly for the purpose of if something was downloaded and it was a malicious malware or something like that. You want to make sure that nobody has that ability to do that, even though it might be unintentional. You really also want to look at updating your acceptable use policies, your incident response plan. If you don't have an incident response plan, in that should have a piece about cybersecurity. It makes a lot of sense to look at that entirety. If we have obviously looked at, we look at incident response and we kind of think about like natural disasters like fires and floods and power outages and things like that. Like how do we keep our business going? Most recently, we now have to account for what happens if another pandemic happens. But one of the things I think some people forget to look at too is how do you respond to a breach? How do you respond to ransomware? Really start looking at your incident response plan and making sure that's in check. Again, make sure you have a password policy. Make sure you're routinely updating your passwords. You want to look at email backup, mainly for the fact of having, if there is things called ransom cloud where they can actually encrypt and lock out your Office 365, your cloud-based email. That is a real thing, and that's another growing threat that's out there. So having a solution to back up that and recover from that is another tool that you really should be looking into, along with a tool called SimSock. And basically, I'm not going to get into all that because it's a very lengthy discussion, but basically that comes in the form of hardware and software that focuses on traffic incoming and outgoing in the network, and basically looking for all of those malicious types of threats and pieces of data that could be problematic. There's a piece of that where actually it goes to a live service center, actual live people that actually monitor that data that comes in and out, and then can actually respond appropriately if something's found at that point. So a couple things, and then we'll get into some Q&A here. If you guys got some questions of some of the things that we've been talking about, go ahead and start putting that in the Q&A section. What we're looking at, free resources. If you go to our website, if you go to gridtex.com resources and get onto the ebooks, there's 3 ones that we have produced that I think would be of value if you want to know more information specific to malware and data breaches, and obviously things like a cybersecurity training program. We've got 3 pieces of information there. I think will definitely help you as you're looking through all of that information and learning more about it. The other thing too I want to bring to everybody's attention is we do have a YouTube page as well. This webinar, along with other webinars and other videos that we have created, we really value the information, and we can't think of a better way to get this information out there through the form of video. I think one of the biggest issues in IT is communication, and we believe here at Grit that one of the best ways to do that is in the form of video. So you'll find things about things like a password manager that we did a video recently on that. So if you want to check that out, go and do that. We've got interviews that we've done. We've got information on, backups and cybersecurity and so forth. So if you haven't already, definitely subscribe to that. If not, check it out. There's a lot of good information there. So with that, what I'd like to do is I would like to open this up for any questions that anybody would have. Well, looks like we don't have any questions to follow up on here. So with that, what we'll do is we'll sign off a little early. We did slot an hour for this presentation today. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who participated today. This is a recorded event, so this will be available so you guys can review. If you have any questions about anything specific to the dark web, obviously how to protect yourself, any questions on anything that we've covered here today, definitely reach out to us. We'd be happy to walk you through it. Thank you so much for your time, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye-bye.